There's a point in every empire's decline when the currency stops being demanded. Alternatives emerge, and the incentive to hold the declining currency evaporates. This is stage 6 of the 7-stage collapse, the loss of reserve currency status. Right now in 2025, the dollar is showing the first real signals that this stage is beginning. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency from 1815 to 1945, 130 years of dominance. Every major trade was denominated in pounds. Central banks held British bonds. The City of London was the financial center. But by 1960, the pound was no longer reserve currency. It never came back. The yen followed a similar arc. Japan became the world's second largest economy, but never achieved reserve status after its bubble burst. These weren't sudden collapses. They were gradual shifts where central banks stopped using these currencies for international settlement. The dollar became reserve currency at Bretton Woods in 1944, replacing the pound because America had replaced Britain as the global superpower. For 81 years, the dollar held this status almost unchallenged. But stage 6 is about what's happening right now. When a currency is reserve currency, countries hold massive amounts for trade. China needs dollars to buy oil. The IMF holds dollars as primary reserve. Central banks hold dollars as their safest asset. This creates constant demand that keeps the currency strong. But when alternatives emerge, everything changes. In 2024, BRICS nations announced BRICS Pay, a non-dollar payment system. China and Russia expanded yuan-ruble trading to bypass dollars. Saudi Arabia began accepting payment in yuan for oil. When countries can trade without dollars, they start doing it. Stage 6 accelerates when central banks reduce reserves. China has reduced dollar reserves significantly. Russia, blocked from dollars, liquidated them for gold and yuan. India doubled gold reserves and reduced dollar holdings. Even U.S. allies are diversifying. Japan, South Korea, and European central banks have all reduced dollar allocations. When central banks worldwide reduce reserves simultaneously, it signals eroding reserve currency status. When reserve currency status is lost, the currency becomes ordinary. The dollar will be treated like the pound or yen, a national currency accepted in trade but no longer privileged. This matters because reserve status creates artificial demand that keeps the currency strong. Right now, the dollar is strong, not because the U.S. economy is healthy. The U.S. debt is 132% of GDP. The government cannot balance the budget. But the dollar is strong because everyone has to hold dollars. When that artificial demand disappears, capital flows out. Foreign central banks sell dollars and buy alternatives. Corporations price contracts in other currencies. The supply of dollars increases while demand shrinks. The dollar weakens 10, then 20, then 40% against gold. What costs $100 today will cost 140s when stage 6 is complete. To Americans, this shows up as inflation. To the world, it's a declining currency. Both are true simultaneously. Here's what stage 6 means. For savers in dollars, it's catastrophic. Your savings lose 30 to 50% of purchasing power. Bonds become worthless in real terms. For businesses, companies importing goods face massive cost increases. For the U.S. government, debt becomes easier to pay in weakening dollars, but interest rates will spike. When the world stops demanding dollars, the Treasury has to offer higher rates to find buyers. Rates could spike from 4 to 5% to 8, 10, even 12%. Interest payments, already $1.2 trillion annually, could reach $2 to $3 trillion per year. At that point, the budget becomes unmanageable. Stage 6 is the transition point. Stages 1 through 5, which the U.S. has already completed, are about the decline of power while the currency still functions as reserve. Stage 6 is when the currency stops functioning as reserve and then starts functioning like every other currency. The government can no longer export inflation to the world. The world can no longer absorb unlimited dollar creation. From that point forward, stage 7 is inevitable. Stage 7 is the actual collapse. The warning signs stage 6 is beginning are clear. Central banks bought record gold in 23 and 24, building reserves for a post-dollar world. De-dollarization has moved from talk to action. Trade settlement in non-dollar currencies increased 300% since 2020. U.S. Treasury yields have inverted multiple times since 2022. When foreign governments stop buying treasuries, the Fed must print money or spike rates, weakening the currency. Real interest rates on dollars have been negative since 2020. Negative real rates destroy a currency because there's no incentive to hold it. Taken together, these signals are the signature of stage 6. Stage 6 of the 7-stage collapse is not coming in 10 years. The evidence suggests it's happening right now in 2025. The process will accelerate over the next 18 to 24 months as more central banks reduce dollar reserves, as more trade moves to alternatives, as the reality becomes unavoidable. By 2027, the dollar will no longer be the clear global reserve currency. Other currencies and gold will be competing equally. By 2029, the dollar will be just another currency. Not worthless, but ordinary. And once that happens, stage 7 begins automatically. Stage 7 is when debt spirals out of control because the government can no longer borrow at reasonable rates. Stage 7 is when inflation becomes uncontrollable because the Fed can no longer export inflation to captive audiences. Stage 7 is the actual collapse that destroys the middle class and reshapes the global order. But all of that stems from stage 6, the loss of reserve currency status, which is happening right now. If you understand where we are in this sequence, if you see stage 6 forming before your eyes, you have time to position yourself. You have time to move wealth into hard assets. You have time to prepare. But that window is closing. Subscribe, because the transition from stage 6 to stage 7 will be the most important financial event of your lifetime, and you need to see it coming.